Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're stepping into the world of Fight Club.
Oh, yeah.
That book and movie that always gets people talking.
Always.
We've got this article here that dives into some of the deeper themes of Fight Club.
It's a good one.
I think it'll be interesting to see what we find.
Definitely.
It's not just about the story itself, but how we can use it to understand, like, our own world.
Yeah, for sure.
Like consumerism and masculinity and, that search for meaning everyone seems to be on.
Absolutely. Fight Club brings up some serious questions.
Yeah.
And this article helps us unpack them.
Yeah.
I think one of the first things that jumps out at you is how it frames consumerism.
Yeah.
It's not just something in the background. It's like a cage.
Right. I remember that line, the things you own end up owning you.
Yeah, classic.
But it's not just, like, they tell us that, right? Like, the film actually shows us.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like, when the narrator is going through his IKEA catalog.
Yeah.
And he describes his apartment as, like, spiritual hibernation.
Perfect example. The film does such a good job of showing us how consumerism works.
Yeah.
It's not just buying stuff.
Yeah.
It's about how we let those purchases define who we are.
Right, like, we're all trying to fit into this mold of what success and happiness are supposed to look like.
Okay.
Have you ever felt that pressure?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, you need to buy certain things to fit in or be accepted?
All the time. And that's where this idea of spiritual emptiness comes in.
Yeah.
It's like you feel disconnected from yourself, from what really matters.
Yeah.
And the film suggests that consumerism is a big part of that.
Yeah.
It keeps pushing us to fill the void with more stuff, but it never really works.
It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone, right?
Exactly. Covers it up for a minute, but doesn't fix the problem.
Right. And then the film connects that emptiness to masculinity.
Yes.
The characters are mostly men, and they're all struggling to find their place in the world.
It's like the world is changing around them,
Yeah.
and they're not sure where they fit in anymore.
Yeah. And those fight clubs become their outlet. It's a way for them to express this raw masculinity.
For sure.
But do you think that's what they're really looking for, though?
It's definitely part of it.
Okay.
This need for power and control.
Yeah, like they feel like they've lost it somewhere along the way.
Yeah. But it's important to note the film isn't glorifying violence.
Right.
It's more about showing us the dark side of what happens when you keep all those emotions bottled up.
Yeah, it's like a pressure cooker.
Exactly. And eventually it explodes.
It makes me think about the pressures men face today.
It's still a huge issue.
This expectation to be strong and stoic and successful all the time.
It could really take a toll.
And that's where Tyler Durden comes in.
Right.
This idea of rebellion, rejecting everything society tells you to be.
He's such a fascinating character.
Oh, he is?
He's charismatic, but destructive at the same time.
Right. It's like he's holding up a mirror to society.
Showing us the consequences of our own discontent.
Have you ever felt tempted by a radical solution
Maybe a little bit.
to a problem you saw in the world?
I think there's a part of all of us that wants to tear down the old and build something new.
Yeah, but Fight Club is like a warning sign.
Yes.
It's like, hey, be careful what you wish for.
Because even rebellion can have unintended consequences.
Yeah, that's an important point. It's like the film is saying we get the frustration, we see the problems.
But there's a better way.
Yeah, and that brings us to one of the most interesting parts of Fight Club.
What's that?
This whole idea of violence being both destructive and cathartic at the same time.
It's a complex portrayal, for sure.
Like, the fighting starts as a way for these guys to feel something,
Right, to break through the numbness.
but then it quickly escalates into something much darker.
Definitely.
I remember that line from the article.
Which one?
The Fight Club is a crucible where pain is transformed into a perverse kind of currency.
Wow.
It's a powerful image.
It is.
It shows how masculinity can become so twisted and self-destructive.
Yeah, it's like they're wearing their injuries as badges of honor.
And it makes me think about how even in rebellion, there can be a kind of conformity.
That's interesting.
Like, there's pressure to follow the group no matter how extreme things get.
Yeah, you're right.
And that's one of the most thought-provoking parts of the film.
For sure.
It makes you question the lines between rebellion and conformity.
Individual freedom versus collective responsibility.
It's like the film is saying, hey, you think you're breaking the rules, but are you really?
Or are you just creating new rules to replace the old ones?
Exactly. That's a question we all need to ask ourselves.
Both in the film and in our own lives.
Because true freedom isn't just about rejecting what's already there.
It's about choosing what you believe in and how you want to live.
And that's just the beginning. We've got so much more to explore in Fight Club.
Can't wait.
But before we go any further, we need to take a closer look at this one specific element of the film.
Oh, yeah.
It really captures the essence of the whole thing, the paradox of Fight Club itself. We'll get into that right after this.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Fight Club.
So before the break, we were talking about violence in the film.
Yeah, how it's both destructive and like a form of release.
Right. And how it's not just like mindless action, it actually has meaning.
Exactly. The film isn't saying violence is the answer.
Right.
It's more about showing how people can be driven to extremes.
Yeah, when they feel lost and desperate.
Like they have no purpose.
And how society can kind of push people in that direction.
Yeah, with all its pressures and expectations.
The article also mentions how those fight clubs are full of contradictions.
Oh yeah. How so?
Well, on one hand, they're all about rejecting societal norms.
Right. Breaking free.
But then they have all these rules and rituals.
Oh, that's a good point. It's
Right.
like they're just replacing one system with another.
Right. Even Tyler Durden, who's supposed to be this symbol of rebellion,
Yeah.
he ends up creating his own structure with Project Mayhem.
It's like no matter what we do, we're always bound by some kind of system.
So are we all just stuck then?
That's a big question.
Is there no way to break free without creating something new to take its place?
I think Fight Club definitely makes us think about those things.
Yeah.
It challenges us to question what freedom and rebellion really mean.
But it also makes us look at ourselves.
Yeah, like how do we fit into all of this?
Are we just going along with things, or are we trying to change them?
It's a tough question to answer.
Okay, but let's get back to consumerism for a minute.
Okay.
The article talked about how Fight Club uses visuals to kind of expose consumer culture.
Oh, yeah. It's a visually stunning film.
But how does it target consumerism specifically?
Well, think about all those quick cuts and flashy images.
Yeah, and all the product placements.
It's like the film is using those techniques to make us aware of them.
Like it's saying, hey, wake up and see how this stuff works.
Exactly. It's like they're showing us how advertising manipulates our desires.
It's pretty eye-opening.
Especially now with how much advertising we're bombarded with every day.
Right? It's everywhere.
And Fight Club's like this warning sign.
Saying, don't let consumerism control your life.
But then it offers this extreme alternative with Project Mayhem.
Which takes things way too far.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They're trying to destroy the system, but through violence and chaos.
It's like the ultimate rejection of everything.
I get why they're frustrated.
Yeah.
But is that really the answer?
That's the big question, isn't it? Is there a middle ground?
Can we fight against the bad stuff without going to those extremes?
I don't know if Fight Club gives us a clear answer.
Yeah, it's more about making us think about these things.
And confront some uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world.
The article also talks about this need for connection.
Yeah, even the characters in Fight Club who are rejecting society.
They still want to belong.
It's a basic human need.
This need to be part of something bigger than ourselves.
And when we don't find that connection in healthy ways,
They can be drawn to extreme groups or ideologies.
it's like we're looking for something to fill that void.
So even when we're trying to be different, we still need each other.
That's the irony, isn't it?
But how do we build those real connections?
Without falling into the traps that Fight Club shows us.
It's not enough to just tear things down.
We have to build something better.
Something that actually makes us feel connected.
It's easy to get cynical after watching Fight Club.
Yeah, to feel like it's all hopeless.
But the film does offer a glimmer of hope.
Yeah, what is it?
It shows us that even in the midst of all the chaos,
There's still the possibility for change.
for redemption,
So what's the first step?
how do we go from feeling cynical to actually doing something?
Yeah, how do we make a difference?
Maybe it starts with recognizing our own role in the things we're criticizing.
Like taking responsibility for our own actions.
Exactly. And then finding ways to create positive change.
In our own lives and in our communities.
It's about moving beyond the anger and destruction
And choosing to act with compassion and awareness.
to build something better.
But how do we actually do that?
Maybe it starts with just talking to each other.
Yeah, having real conversations about the things that matter.
We need to break down those walls that keep us isolated
Create spaces where people feel safe to be themselves.
and support each other.
Maybe that's the real Fight Club.
What do you mean?
The one where we fight for connection and understanding instead of against each other.
That's a beautiful thought.
But before we get too carried away,
Yeah.
remember that article we mentioned earlier?
Oh, yeah, the one with the mini test.
Yeah, to see how materialistic we are.
Did you take it?
I did. I was a little nervous to see the results.
Me too.
But it turns out I'm not as bad as I thought.
That's good.
Finally checked 2 boxes.
What does that mean?
It means I'm hardly materialist and consumerist.
Oh, nice. What about you?
What did you get?
I got a 0.
Wow.
Not a materialist bone in my body.
That's awesome.
Which isn't really surprising.
Yeah.
I've always been more interested in experiences than stuff.
I think it's a good exercise for everyone, though,
Definitely.
to take a step back and think about their relationship with consumerism.
It's so easy to get caught up in wanting more and more,
But Fight Club reminds us that true happiness comes from within.
not from the things we own.
Exactly. It's about finding yourself and your place in the world.
It's a journey.
It's not always easy,
It can be messy and uncomfortable.
but it's worth it.
Absolutely.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive,
We have.
so maybe a quick recap is in order,
Yeah, it's a good idea.
just to remind ourselves what we've learned from Fight Club.
It'll help us solidify the key insights.
All right, so we spent some time with Fight Club.
Yeah, unpacking all its layers.
But before we go, I think it's helpful to do a quick recap,
Oh, for sure.
just to hit the main points one more time.
Definitely. So where do we start?
Well, I guess with consumerism.
Yeah, how the film shows it as this system that keeps us wanting more.
Right. Always chasing the next thing, but never really feeling satisfied.
Exactly. And how that ties into this idea of spiritual emptiness.
That feeling that something's missing, even if you have it all on the surface.
Fight Club does a great job of showing how that emptiness plays out.
Especially for men,
Yeah, who are trying to find their place in a world that's changing.
where those traditional roles don't really fit anymore.
Right, and then there's violence.
Yeah, which at first seems like a way to release all that pent-up frustration.
But it ultimately leads to chaos and destruction.
It's a reminder that rebellion can go too far.
And then there's the paradox of the whole thing.
Right, like the film critiques the very systems it seems to embody.
It makes you question if true rebellion is even possible.
But it's not all bleak.
No, definitely not.
We talked about how even when rejecting society, those characters still crave connection,
It's that basic human need to belong.
to be part of something.
And that brings us back to the question of finding a middle ground.
Can we fight against the things that are wrong without resorting to extremes?
It's the question Fight Club leaves us with.
It doesn't give us all the answers.
But it definitely makes us think.
And for me, that's the power of a great film.
It stays with you long after the credits roll.
Makes you question things.
Re-examine your own beliefs.
So as we wrap up, I'm curious,
Yeah.
what really resonated with you from our discussion?
That's a good question.
Hmm.
I think for me, it's the reminder that true rebellion is about thinking for yourself.
Not just blindly following someone else's lead.
Exactly. It's about finding your own voice,
And having the courage to use it.
to challenge the status quo, to speak up for what you believe in.
And I think it's also about remembering that we all have the power to make a difference.
Oh, absolutely.
Even in small ways.
Acts of kindness,
Moments of genuine connection.
choosing to live authentically.
It all adds up.
To a better world.
So I want to leave our listeners with this.
Okay.
What if, instead of fighting each other,
Yeah.
we focused on fighting the systems that keep us divided?
Imagine that.
Channeling our energy into building something better.
Based on love and respect.
Finding fulfillment in our passions, in our connections.
And creating something meaningful.
Imagine a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
That's a world worth fighting for.
It is. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Fight Club.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep fighting for a better world.